Matam Vadas doesn't work according to reason and seichel, and therefore the regular way of attacking Amalek, which is klippa, which is, for example, the Shiva Amin, we have to attack them in a way of seichel. That's not going to help because Amalek does everything in a way that's beyond beyond seichel. So therefore, how do you deal with Amalek? You have to deal with Amalek that Rebbe is going to speak about in a way l'mayla matam vadas. Line 3 on page 15, also the page you test. Since Amalek attacked without reason, there was no logical reason for him to do so. Like we said, was chutzpah b'li taga, he was ben shivcha, and so on. Still, therefore, and we can't deal with him with logic because he also has his own logic, and the logic that he has did not stop him from attacking the Eden. Because the idea of reason, there's also to be found by Amalek. Because there is this opposing that. Klippa has the same thing that Kedusha have. Now you do like a well-known expression. He knows his master and he intends to rebel against him. So that is the idea of Amalek, that Amalek knows Elikus. Therefore, explaining Elikus and explaining how wrong he is not going to help. Though he knows this is his master of Ein Zorak Yediyah Stam, it's not just an ordinary knowledge, but rather something that Torah calls Yedeya. It's an expression in Torah, Yedeyas Rabbeinu Mechaven Limrid Boy. This indicates a strong knowledge, but Tanya, like is explained in Tanya. The idea of Das is that he invests and inserts his thought very strongly. Still in all, even though he has the das, he has a strong understanding of Elikus, he still intends to rebel against the Eibishter. That's the idea, like we spoke about yesterday, having chutzpah without a crown. There's no logic, there's no reason, there's no support for his chutzpah. This means though he has no explanation why he should be chutzpahdik, why he should attack Yiddishkeit. He's in a tenua of, he is an approach of chutzpah. He doesn't become affected by the light and revelation. And this is also why Amalek is associated with coldness. From this comes about also the idea of coldness in avodah, like we said. Like we know from Asher Karcha Baderach, Asher Karcha is from the word cold. Though he sees many things, that because of those things, Amalek should have been with great excitement about seeing all the nisim that happened when the Eden went out of Mitzrayim. Still in all, he's an approach of coldness. Asher Karcha, like it says in the pasuk, Asher Karcha, which the simple meaning is that he met you, but we say Karcha from the word kar, coldness. Therefore, what's the advice to defeat Amalek? It's not the avodah, which is a war according to reason, which is the way how we deal with the Shiva Amamin. We deal with the 7 nations through his bonus, and through that his bonus that affects our emotions, so that instead of our emotions being in Klippa, the 7 Klippas, the 7 emotional attributes of Klippa, instead he transforms them to Kedusha. But Amalek, that's not going to work because he knows it. The way to defeat Amalek is with the avodah that's beyond reason and understanding. Beginning from the avodah that's from the level of chaya, that we said that chachma is beyond reason, and that is what can defeat Amalek. Just like Reish is going Amalek, just like Amalek is the level of Reishis of Klippa, we need to have the Reishis of Kedusha, which is Chochma, Chaya, and even going higher, the level of Yechida. So now he's going to explain the Chochma of Kedusha is associated with Moshe. We wanted to know, why is it Moshe's job, and why is it Moshe Rabbeinu raising his hands that affects this defeat of Amalek? And not only that, but throughout history, that it's all going to be by the strength of Moshe raising his hand, that the war against Amalek happened in Shaul's time, and the war against Amalek will happen in Haman's time, and will happen in Mashiach's times. So he says in ICU, line 25, this is what it says. Kaשר Yrim, it'll be when Moshe raised up his hand, and the Jewish people will overpower him. Moshe's idea is like it says, that we are what? That Moshe Rabbeinu was an embodiment of Ma'av Sfiras HaChochma. Chochma, we said, is what's necessary to be able to defeat Amalek. So much so was Moshe Rabbeinu an embodiment of the level of the Ma'av Chochma, that even down here below, his vessel, meaning his body, was not in such a way that it would be an interference to the revelation of prophecy. Other prophets had to, when they received prophecy, they totally lost themselves, they fell on the floor, they couldn't be in a normal type of conscious state. But Moshe Rabbeinu was different. Top of page Chav, like it's explained in many places. During prophecy, Moshe Rabbeinu could stand like a normal person with normal consciousness. Why is this? Because his body was completely refined and completely transparent and allowing the light of the highest levels to shine through. Therefore, they said about Moshe Rabbeinu, that when he was born, they saw that he was good. And one of the explanations that Chazal give, what's the meaning that he was good? That when he was born, the entire house, which also means that his body was the house for his neshama, was completely filled with light. Till his body was in such a way that the Shekhinah spoke out of his throat. So that means he was completely transparent. And therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu was the means to bring the Chochmah down that's necessary to be able to defeat Amalek. The Rebbe continues in line 6, to note this idea that also Moshe Rabbeinu's body was completely good. It's just like we described earlier about the sphere of Chochmah. Also the vessel itself is in a way of light. Like we said that in Chochmah it's primarily light, even the vessel is like light. Therefore, Chochmah is called Chayohi, the level of the Neshama, versus Kalim, which is the Guf, begins with the latter spheres. In other words, it says, one of the meanings is, what's it mean? Chayoy, the life, the neshama, and the garmoy is the bodies. Chayoy is going on Chochmah. Chochmah is the level of Chayoy. Garmoy, the level of the vessels of Atzilus, begin later. As opposed to the idea of vessels, in comparison to what Chochmah is, that it's like without a vessel in comparison to it, is a bin, like we said earlier, that Chochmah in comparison to Bina is like a light without a vessel. Because the great quality of the level of Moshe, he was able to receive and contain the level of Chaya. And not only the level of Chaya, also the level of Yechidah. Therefore, Kasher Yrim, וגבר Yisrael, when Moshe raised his hand, and then the Yidden were able to overpower Amalek. How was that so? What was Moshe Rabbeinu's situation impacting, and how was it impacting the Yidden? Because Moshe and Yidden are joined. Since Moshe Rabbeinu was the faithful shepherd of all Yidden, Moshe Rabbeinu was also be able to influence the Bnei Yisrael, that in every single Yid, the Moshe that's embedded within him should be able to become revealed. Through this, they became Moshe's men. Like the expression is in the Maimed Alter Rebbe in Torah Ohr. So now, when I have the Moshe that's within me revealed, I am a man of Moshe, then וגבר Yisrael, that the Yidden are overpowering, that's affected the idea that He weakened Amalek and his nation by sword. So now the Rebbe explains this concept in general is brought down in many Mamorim. Here the Rebbe is going to introduce a new question. In many Mamorim it speaks about that the only way to deal with Amalek doesn't fight, cannot be defeated with logic. You need to go with a level that's beyond logic. The level of beyond logic, that has to do with Moshe Rabbeinu, etc. Now the Rebbe is going to introduce another thing, and a question on this common type of explanation. It says in Oisir Aleph, line 21, yet we still need to understand. The Lechura seemingly since we have to be involved with the clip of Amalek, that by Amalek, light does not help. Like we said, he knows his master. And the proof of it is he knows his master and he still intends to rebel against him. In other words, it's not because of a lack of knowledge and lack of awareness. How does it happen that Amalek in his nation becomes weakened through Moshe? The idea of Chachma is the level of light, Panim Me'iris, Kanal Sivdal, like we said earlier, that Chachma is the luminous reason, the luminous face, the inner level shines. Amalek doesn't become affected by revelation of light because he knows it all, he has it all. So how is it that Moshe Rabbeinu, by bringing more light to bear, is able to influence Amalek? So the Rebbe explains, the explanation this is, even though earlier we spoke about that the 7 nations are more able to be transformed easier than Amalek, but in some ways the 7 nations have it worse than Amalek. So he says, top of page Chaf Aleph, the 7 nations, that these are the 7 emotional attributes. They affect not only to cool someone off from his passion for Yiddishkeit, it darkens, it conceals the light of the nefesh. How does that take place? In general, this occurs because he becomes embedded and sunk into the desires of the world. B'taivas Isar, either in prohibited taivas, or even permitted taivas, if they're in a way of he's just fulfilling the desires of his body, but he's not doing so for the service of Hashem, like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, the distinction between how we're supposed to approach things that are permitted in our conscious effort of using them. Through any of these taivas, whether prohibited taivas or even permitted taivas, nasa gasas v'chumriyah, so then it becomes coarseness and very materialistic. Then there even becomes a blockage around the heart and the mind. That this blockage causes that because of my great taivas, as much as there's a revelation of light and as much as I understand, it doesn't permeate me. Since the light doesn't reach over there, this is what we had recently in Tanya, that there is there could be situations that the person is suffering from Timtum Alev and Timtum Amoyach, and he has to search for particular eitzes, even though he meditated in the greatness of the Eibishter, and that meditation should have brought him to love and awe of Hashem. He's stuck. He's clogged up. He has to break himself, like the Alter Rebbe explains, and through that be able to release that Timtum. But Lepoil, he's not able to receive a Gili Oir, because the light doesn't reach over there. So he says in line 9, that is the deficiency and the lack of the 7 nations, the bad emotions, over in a worse way than Amalek. It's a place of darkness that has no light whatsoever. It's not applicable any type of works. There's nothing what to work with. There's nothing what to deal with. Since his whole connection is only to darkness and he doesn't have any receptacle and any connection with light, but you have to do some prior things over there to get this timtum removed, this blockage removed. As opposed to Amalek. Amalek is not about darkness, amazingly so. Masha'enkin Amalek, it says in line 13, Amalek is different. Since he knows his maker, like we said before, that he knows it in a way how Chassidus talks about knowing, in a way of his kashrus and a strong bond. So he has the idea of light. Therefore, there could be some type of avodah. And there's something to work with this person. The only problem with Amalek is you cannot just work with the limited measured level that's according to reason and knowledge. That's going to be insufficient because he knows things as well. And he doesn't care that he knows. But rather, you need to bring a much powerful gili to light, to bear. There has to be the service and the toil in a way beyond reason. Then, when he meditates and contemplates on the light that he already has, so then he comes to an understanding and a comprehension and a grasp in this godly light. From aware from below to above, like we explained earlier, that in understanding and connecting with godliness intellectually, there are many stages. From the understanding and comprehension of Bina, he comes to the point of the core and summary of it. From this he comes to the level of Chachma, to the level of Chachma that recognizes something, that recognizes Alakus, until the verification that comes because of the vision of Chachma. As we know, when we see something, that's the ultimate verification. The ultimate highest level of Chachma, or one of the highest levels of Chachma, is it's as if we're seeing it. By reaching all the way this high, working your way up, so then Mizbatelis Klippas Amalek, Klippa of Amalek becomes nullified. But how does it start? Because of Chachma Moshe Rabbeinu. All of this is because he has a level of Chachma. The Chachma is by him in a revealed way. In a way that the Chachma is connecting to him. Because even being in a state and situation of Amalek, he still knows his master. Therefore, he can have the level of avodah. So the Rebbe is now going to add, there are other ways that are, in a way, more down to earth, how to deal with Amalek if I'm not in tune with the Chachma, if I'm not manifesting the Moshe that's within me. And that has to do with literally what we're going to do this Shabbos is reading Parshas Zachor. The action of reading, that itself breaks Amalek. Let's see Ois Yud Beis, line 30. It's brought down in the Sfarim. There's another advice to be victorious in the war against Amalek, in a person's internal inner service to Hashem. That is, Kriyas Parshas Zachor, through the reading of Parshas Zachor. When we listen, it's like reading it, because Shemea Ka'ina, when we hear, it's like actually saying it. How does the reading of Parshas Zachor impact Amalek? Because Torah also has to do with that level that's beyond measure and limitation. From the Torah, there is the revelation of the inner level of the Ein Sof. Shekol Inyanihu, top of page Chavbeis, L'mayla Matam Vadas. It's beyond reason again. So Torah has a revelation that's beyond reason. Through reading the Torah, he calls and draws down. From the word calling as well, calling to himself, like Sa'adam HaKoyrei L'Chaverei. We draw down the level to remember what Amalek did to you, until we draw down the level that you will eradicate the memory of Amalek. That is a second thing. In addition to what Moshe does, the Chachma Shebenefesh, there is the reading in the Torah that does it. A third thing, so too, there's another advice to nullify the Klippas Amalek through action. The mitzvahs ma'asis. That's the idea of mitzvahs in action specifically. Not just the love and awe that I have in my heart. That's not going to help Amalek. That means to put in effort in fulfilling of mitzvahs and to be extra careful in them. Like it's brought the example for this concerning the mitzvah of putting on tefillin. That a person should put in effort by making sure that the parshas were written, and so too the parshas were checked over by a expert sofer that fears Hashem. And so too the fixing up and preparing of the housing for the tefillin, the batim for the tefillin, should also be done by a should be done by an expert sofer, and it should be done that he's also the expert sofer as a yer elokim. We should make sure that we're placing on the tefillin in the correct place, in the correct manner. He should not remove his mind from them. So too, in other mitzvahs, the care and the focus on doing the mitzvahs in the best way possible, the actual performance of the mitzvahs, which is the complete opposite of what Amalek is about. Amalek is about cooling the person off and saying, don't get so excited. The investing himself in doing the mitzvahs, that itself counters the effect of Amalek. Also has to do with the Oir and Saf, etc. And therefore it has that Oir HaBligvul that can overcome Amalek. So he says in line 13, second paragraph on the page, but closing, but the general idea behind this is there's the way how you can be victorious in the war of Amalek in a way that's coming from above to below. Concerning this, it says, it says, in one pasuk it says, I will surely eradicate the memory of Amalek. Not Timcha, you should eradicate. When and how is Hashem doing the eradication? That's when it's coming from above. How is it coming from above? The coming from above is what's affected through reading of Parshas Zachar in the Torah. That he's calling to himself and drawing down from above to below through reading in the Torah. So that is drawing down from above to below. That's Machai Emcha. It's Hashem's eradication of Amalek. In a similar vein, through fulfilling mitzvahs, the Shazel Gamba from the Malmai Lamata, that's also considered from above to below Machai Emcha. The performance of mitzvahs has an empowerment from above. That's what we say, that Hashem sanctified us in His mitzvahs and commanded us, that He empowered us to draw down this hamshacha. So it's all coming from Hashem, this eradication of Amalek, through reading in the Torah and through performing mitzvahs. This also is the empowerment that following this, there should be able to be that you will eradicate any memory of Amalek in the way of going from below to above. Like explained at length in a different place. The timcha bal achre inyan the machai emcha. That idea that you should eradicate Amalek follows the level of that I will eradicate, because first there is the empowerment from above with the reading of Parshas Zachar and the doing the mitzvahs. He begins to put in effort with the idea of the light that's in him. That's the mulmata l'mayla part. Till he reaches a level of recognition and vision of Chachma, and even higher. But that is only once he had the Machai Emcha, the help from above, that the Eibishter gave him the assistance, that through the reading in the Torah and through doing the mitzvahs.